Strategies for Entrepreneurs. My name is Melissa O'Connor, and I will be the facilitator for today's presentation. Before we begin, I want to start with a few logistics. In order to get the best sound quality, we strongly recommend that you call in from a telephone, as well as having the webinar pulled up on your computer. To join by conference call, locate the audio box on your dashboard and make sure that the telephone radio button is selected. Underneath that, there's a telephone number and access code. You dial the number, enter the access code, and then enter your audio PIN. Although it is possible to participate without using your phone, we won't be able to hear the questions you have unless your microphone is enabled. If you do have any questions during the webinar, we ask that you please type your question in the chat box, and we'll pose those questions to the presenters at the end of today's webinar. Or if you'd like to ask the presenters your questions directly, you may select the raise hand icon, and time permitting, we will unmute your line and allow you to speak. Remember, this option is only available to those who have called on the conference call or have a quality microphone connected to their computer. And finally, please note that today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll provide the link to the recording via email once the webinar is concluded. Additionally, we'll be sending a follow-up survey after the webinar, and we'd really appreciate any feedback you would be willing to provide. And now I am pleased to turn today's presentation over to the experts, Tara Palacios, Director of BizLaunch, and Elena Dimitrova with Sage Communications.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's presentation on social media strategies for entrepreneurs. My name is Tara Palacios, and I am the Director of BizLaunch, and it is our honor and pleasure to have you with us for today's webinar. Today, joining me will be Stacy Swartz, who is the Digital Media Manager for Arlington Economic Development. And I also have with me Elena Dimitrova, the Account Manager specializing in public relations for Sage Communications. So we are really looking forward to a fantastic webinar, really digging in deep into social media strategies for entrepreneurs. I can say for myself in the past, I have a background in marketing and doing things for the public sector, private sector, and everything in between. With Stacy, she's done some really great things for us here in economic development, working with Artisphere and all the wonderful shows that they do, as well as with us within business investment. I hate to interrupt, but we've heard from some of the callers that they're not actually seeing the screen right now. Oh! So we're going to take a second. Oh, there's a show my screen. I see that. I solved it right there. Hey, hey, hey. Thanks to the folks that were on the phone for letting us know. We should be all set. Okay, sorry about that. There is the screen, and it is all about us. So Stacy's been able to do some great stuff with us. And also, let me see. Let me go back, y'all, to our main screen. Just a little bit of technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a webinar without it. But Elena has also worked and done extensive work with the Huffington Post, and doing startup and in working with small businesses on marketing and how best to use social media. So I'm really pleased to have you both with me here today. So as we launch, now that everybody can see the screen, you've got your business on social media, now what? That is a huge, huge question. You've gone to namecheck.com and you've saved your name for your company, for your business. You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. You've got likes, you've got people that follow you, you've got Skype, you've got Vimeo, you've got Vine, you're doing Instagram, on Pinterest. There are all these things that are out there that you've done. And you could spend all day and every day on your social media. But you also have a business to run. So there are things that you have to do besides doing social media 24/7. And so we're here to say that, you know, social media, what social media for your business is and what it's not and how best to implement that, that's what we're going to be talking about during this lunch hour. And we're so glad that you're here because we're going to make sense through all of that kind of noise that's out there, how you best can use it with your business. Now, one thing I can say what social media is not, because that's really easy for us as marketers, I would say, is that social media is not about what you had for breakfast each and every morning. That not only did you have your cornflakes, but you added some blueberries in there just to shake things up a bit. That's not social media. Your clients, your customers don't really care about your cornflakes unless they're buying them from you and your Kellogg's, right? But since we're not in that business, that's something that you don't want to do, what you do every day at 6 a.m. It's also not that water cooler conversation, meaning that when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to see your name plastered over everything about different dance moves that you can do. It really is that you want that water cooler conversation in that you can offer something that's super cool to your clients, and you have a buzz that's going on, and that you're going viral for what you do rather than what you did, right? And then next, there is that balance. You know, you also don't want to be ho-hum and say, well, join us for our webinar on social media on November 12th. You know, it's really join us on our November 12th webinar because you have someplace to go when it snows, right? For the SnowQuester, join us for this wonderful, you know, where you can be warm and comfortable. It's adding that bit of spice to content and information on a daily basis. It's making it fresh and cooler for people versus just the whole humness of it all. Which leads us into what makes for a great social media campaign. You know, many times you know it when you see it. Everything has the same shape and the same size, but it's something that dares to be different. You know, it's that green apple amongst all of the red. And it's also the ability to move people to take an action or to do something. And it's consistent and it's time, and you know an apple when you see it, when you bite into it. But do you want a sweet apple? Do you want a crunchy apple? What kind of apple is it that you want? And what are some of the elements that really make for a great social media campaign? And suffice to say, it's really all about timing. It's about that relevant messaging, not telling people about cornflakes every day. That kind of, your message will get lost. And really understanding your target audience, how they access that information. I work with a lot of business owners that are delving into social media, and the question that I get, that they tell me all the time, is it doesn't work. You know, it's not, my social media isn't working for me. Well, how often have you been using your social media? You know, where is your consistent? What times of the day? When do your customers actually access that information? And many times they'll say, well, I sent out a couple of tweets and nobody responded, you know. But it really is about the timing, that it's relevant and it resonates with people, and that you understand your audience. So really what we're saying is that social media and marketing are intertwined. They're interchangeable. It is part of your marketing campaign. Many moons ago when people did ads and advertising and bought time on the radio, that was tangible. In today's times, we're moving more towards the internet and doing online marketing and doing online things, and it's changed. But it's still, you'll be utilizing traditional marketing techniques. So for one thing that I would say for everybody is to make sure that your social media campaign falls into your marketing campaigns that you're doing, and that it's very well thought out, it's strategic, it's not reactive, it's proactive, and it's designed in a way so that you can do it over and over and over again. Which leads us, until we jump into some more of the specifics of social media, these are Tara's social media tips of the trade. And number one for me is, how does your customer access information? Are they online? Are they using their smartphones? Are they on their computer a lot? Are they doing Google searches? How are they finding you? And how often are they using or making buys or making purchases? If it's a government agency that you're doing business with, how often do they go online to find customers? And how are they being strategic about it? You want to know exactly how your customer is accessing that information so that you can respond to it. Consistency, predictability. Whenever you talk in marketing about advertising, remember it takes at least 6 touches before people realize that you're there. So when you think of classical advertising, you think of that ad that you can sing in your mind because it plays so many times. The same is true with social media. You're out there at certain times. You're consistent. Your message is consistent. The information that you're relaying, it's quality information. It's predictable in its timing. It's using a natural voice versus a stilted voice versus somebody that sounds like a robot. It's you, or it's the people that you've trained to actually manage your social media outlets. So you want to have it come natural and not sounding robotic. Brr, 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 brr. Come to my workshop. That doesn't work. And you want to make it personal. The way business is done is by personal relationships. I love it when I go to a store, or I love it when I go into an office building and the people know me. Hi, Tara, how are you? You know, that resonates, that you remember my name, that you know who I am, that you know what I like to do, right? So you're personalizing the experience versus come and purchase this from me. You know, people that I've seen that use Facebook very effectively are the ones that say, okay, here's my product online. This will be good for you because, isn't this adorable? Isn't this great? Not just buy this today. It's asking me to do something. And also the social media, it's not just being on Twitter. It's not just being on Facebook. We're going to talk about some really key best practices, and you'll see that it's utilizing multiple platforms. And Elena's going to talk more about how to best use those multiple platforms and also to look and to see how you get your return on investment. So it's time, it's doing it again and again, and it's making sure that you're getting people to perform an action. And as you can see at the very bottom, after combining all of those ingredients, you have to repeat those steps consistently and daily. It's almost like your recipes and that you're going forward. So with that, I got one more thing that I want to share with you all, and that's social media trends for 2014. Right now it's 2013. 2014 is so much different. And what that landscape, with technology and utilizing technology, things change all the time. And some of the things that we're seeing that businesses are doing and doing well is having concentrated social media staff on hand. These are people that will be tweeting, that will be going on LinkedIn, that will be going on Facebook, and consistently sending those messages using those various platforms daily. One of the things that I would recommend also that we've seen in 2013 is to make sure that these are trusted staff and they understand your social media policy. You don't want someone rogue out there with everybody has access to your account and sending out information that you haven't approved or that you don't agree with or doesn't reflect your brand. You really want to make sure that your folks are trained, that they understand what it is that you do, and that they can go out there and be as responsive as possible. There is going to be more of a movement towards aggregation sites like Dig that actually go out and like have all the resources in one fingertip. Rather than me trying to find information from a variety of sources, I can go to an aggregator of data and find everything that's of interest to me in one click. So just kind of be aware of this trend, making sure that exposure is everything. I taught social media classes the last couple of years, and I always felt like I was convincing people to get on social media. I think now the trend is if you're not there, you don't exist. And so I really feel strongly about that you have a presence online, that you're updating that presence fairly frequently, that you're putting in new data and new information. Because let me tell you, before I do business with anybody, whether it's with IT, whether it's a store, whether it's, I will go to Yelp, I will go online, I will look to see how many followers there are, positive comments there are. This is for doctors, nurses, it's for everything. So I think the way our society receives information is different. So make sure that you're there in 2014. And also there's a movement not only to use text, but to use video and photos. That goes back to what I was speaking about earlier about personalizing and making sure that the information means something and resonates something. Let me tell you, if I pick something up with a little kid on there, I will get so many likes and clicks, even if the content is kind of boring. But if I have this cute young little person on there, you'll get responses. So these are things to think about, not to use somebody that you don't know's child, but, you know, make sure that it's relevant and it resonates and it's not only are you talking about it, but you're using Vine, you're using Instagram, and you're incorporating this into your daily, what you do every day. Now, we just don't do these things. I mean, there's social and there's media, and it's social media, and it's all about the personal relationships. But we also want to make sure that we're constantly measuring, we're constantly analyzing what we're doing. Do we just do this just to say we're there and we're doing it? No, we're doing it to see what that return on investment is. And with anything that you're doing in marketing, you're spending money, you're spending time, so you want to make sure that it resonates and that it's bringing people either back to your website or back to what your bottom line is and back to what you're doing. And some of these trends, I went online and found the writer Drew Hendricks, who writes for Forbes, and he goes into these different topics in detail. So I highly recommend that you take a look at his article and see what's happening in 2014 so that you're in front of the curve versus behind. And with that, I'm going to toss it off to my friend, my partner in crime, Elena, who is going to be talking in depth about social media for your business.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and let me start off my presentation by saying a big, big thank you to the wonderful hosts here at BizLaunch for having this presentation for us today and giving me an opportunity to speak to you. My goal today is to give you as much actionable insight and tactical tricks of the trade, as well as some strategic considerations to ensure that you do build robust and scalable social media programs. But even more importantly, I want to make sure that, to walk you through the process of creating a social media program that is tied to actual business outcomes, which, as Tara mentioned, is usually the biggest challenge.
That's right.
All right, so with that, let's get started. This probably goes without saying, but in today's interconnected world, your consumers, whether that's just the mass consumer or a business decision maker or a partner, you really anticipate and expect an instant access to your brand and to your services and to yourself as a leader. I looked up a lot of articles before coming here, and it's interesting that research shows us now that consumers actually spend less than 1% of their time actually buying, and 99% of their time is spent on researching companies, acquiring knowledge about the brands, the story behind it, what they stand for, and most of that research is really done online and on social media. So if you're a business looking to grow, there is a real opportunity for you to inject yourself in those platforms to build sustainable brand and build exposure. And admittedly, thinking about social media, I understand that the hardest part is getting started. I know that it gets a lot easier after you've built some momentum. So what I've included here are just some potential building blocks for your strategy. And I think where you really would want to start is identifying what success looks like to you. You'll be surprised how many businesses don't do that. And it could be something very tactical, such as, you want to drive more traffic to your website via social media channels. Or if you're looking to building your brand and be positioned as a thought leader in a specific area, you want to start driving conversation and build your reputation so you can eventually move to an influencer model. But regardless of how you define that, what your business goals are, what you want to accomplish with social media is this consistent chamber effect, the consistent echo effect across multiple platforms that is going to create brand recognition and meaningful touch points with your target audiences. And nowadays, we all know this, marketing is really all about engagement. It really is all about creating deeper, more meaningful relationships with your customers. I'm seeing some very exciting trends in marketing that I think are propelled forward mainly by social media usage. We're looking at a lot more cause-related marketing. Brands such as Panera Bread, for example, are looking to connect with their consumer based on deeper value. They're trying to, convince them that they share the same interests. They share the same commitment to their community. And by doing so, they build brand allegiance that has a lot more longevity than if they follow kind of the traditional old school supply and demand model of marketing. So a lot of very exciting stuff happening that, very much are propelled forward by social media. I will also talk to you today about measurement, and I have a few slides towards the end of the presentations because this is so important that you understand what is an interim performance metric and what is actually an actual business outcome. So I have a few recommendations for you and a few free tools that you can use in combinations to gain that visibility and that enterprise-wide view on how you're actually creating traction for your business. Now, looking here at your roadmap, I've outlined 5 easy steps that will help you build together a very strategic, scalable, and repeatable model for your social media. And where I think we really need to start is do a quick brand audit, which means, gain a good understanding of what your digital footprint looks like right now. Are you creating the perception and the brand image for your business that you want people to see? Would you like to change your current perception? And don't only think of it in terms of now, but think of it, how would you like to grow and scale your business in 3 to 5 years? And build a perception among your target audiences based on what that, image of success looks like for you. And the next step is really to develop a plan. As with every strategic activity, I would actually encourage you to start this plan by taking a quick and very detailed look at your resources. What resources do you have at your disposal that you can dedicate to social media? And that doesn't necessarily have to be budget and money. It involves what time you can realistically spend every week. You could have some content assets, visual or written content assets. Your personal network, your tier 1 contracts are really your best resource to start activating more social media brand ambassadors, and they could be a huge asset if you know how to use them strategically. You will need to let that kind of account of your resources dictate the plan of action moving forward. I hate to see, and so many companies make that mistake. They feel like they have something great to say, and they start this wonderful executive blog, and they have 3 absolutely fantastic, thought-provoking blog posts, and then they go dark. And this actually makes it, you look bad doing that. You look like you're not following through on your commitments. So when you think about social media, kind of similar to what Tara mentioned, this is not the effect of blitz advertising. You're not going to see immediate value. This is about building incremental value. So when you take account of your resources, think about how you can extend them over the time period of 12 to 18 months at least. Another thing to think about is content. I mean, you have to fuel the engine. I wish there was a way to start and do something with nothing, but at least I haven't found that. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be you generating your content yourself. I mean, you don't have to have a genius idea 3 times a day that you can tweet in 140 characters.
So I have to say I need at least 2 cups of coffee
before you even start.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it is about understanding where your target audience is, what are the influencers that provide the information to them that shape their perception or shape their buying behavior, how you can insert yourself in a meaningful way through those, in those conversations. Always make sure when you syndicate or curate third-party content, whether it's a news site or somebody's blog, add your own unique perspective to it. Don't just retweet, a news article. Tell your followers what you think about it. Tell your customers what is your perspective on this. Add value. This is about constantly finding ways to add value. And only then you want to start thinking about what platforms to use. I see so many companies that create these platform-centric strategies. They go on Facebook because they think they have to be on Facebook because everybody is on Facebook. It may not be right for your company.
Yeah, that's true.
I included a quick snapshot of a HubSpot survey here that is very relevant for professional services or any business-to-business kind of environment. If you're looking for business leads, you need to be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the most overlooked platforms when it comes to social media. And, study after study shows us that this is where business leads come from. It has 3 times higher conversion ratio than Facebook and Twitter.
Right. Because, I find that when I'm on LinkedIn, I get more people viewing and
engaging, exactly,
tonight
driving
to
website
Facebook.
traffic, absolutely. Well, on the other hand, if you do have a consumer-facing brand and you want to showcase a multi-dimensional brand, then you certainly need to be on Facebook, because Facebook gives you that interactivity. It gives you the opportunity to create more multimedia content. Twitter, on the other hand, is really good about amplifying the message, right? If you want to reach thousands, even millions of people with a tweet, you can. But again, it's about how you architect these programs based on where your audience is. So you need to be strategic about it. And this will also be determined by the resources that you can put into social media. Don't overextend yourself and then not follow through on your commitment. It's just going to hurt your business. And like I said, I'm going to talk about measurement. It's important to think about, continuous refinement. This is more of a journey than a destination. And at this point, I want to take a quick step back and talk about market differentiation and how to shape your voice on social media. I think nowadays, regardless of what your line of business is, or industry, if you're a small business, true market differentiation is very difficult to accomplish.
That's true.
It's even more difficult to maintain.
That's right.
And companies that try to be all things to all people usually fail. So I want you to take a look and think about, what are your unique differentiators? What are the top 3 things that are unique about your business, about your brand, about your service, that you feel are really going to make you stand out from the sea of experts, from the crowd of vendors? We have a very interesting saying in marketing, and I think it very much applies to small businesses and social media. You can sell 20 things if you only market 3.
That's a very good one.
So focus, focus, focus. It's very important for you to define your focus and be consistent about it, because otherwise you're going to end up with a diluted brand. You're not going to get as much brand recognition, and that's going to harm your attempts to reap business benefits out of social media.
When I think of some of those things that have gone viral, it's always been in a lot of these large, whether you're medium, small, large, it's always been in one key area. It's not on the multiple platforms.
Exactly.
You look back, I think of Oreo cookies, and I think of how they did that.
For example, the Dollar Shave Club. I mean, they had a very viral, very clearly differentiated campaign, and now they're expanding. But that's the key. Once you are on the website, you can sell them 20 services. The key is driving them to your website.
Getting them back. And I think that's the thing that we need to make sure that everybody realizes, it really is to drive people back to your site.
Or your content, or your white papers, or your, technical briefs, whatever it could be.
Where that action is that you want the customer or consumer to take.
Exactly. Okay. And social media can be very strategic in driving people to resources and content and increasing traffic. But you have to be targeted. Another kind of question that I get quite a bit from small businesses, and rightfully so, is we talk about engagement, but it seems sometimes that the rules of engagement on social media are not as well defined as they are in the real business world. And actually, I think those 2 worlds are closer together than people may think. And Tara actually touched upon some of those points earlier. You have to be personal. So I want you to kind of start thinking about your social media engagement in the same way you would think about nurturing a business relationship. For example, if you're going to lunch with a prospect, right, a big business prospect, you probably wouldn't sit down and start talking about business immediately, right? You're going to make a remark about the weather.
Buy my stuff.
Right. Buy my stuff now. Right. You're going to ask about their kids. You're going to try to create points of connectivity exactly between 2, and ultimately you're going to start, going down to business.
That's right.
Apply the same methodology to your social relationships, because people want to feel like they're connecting with people. The more they get to know you, the more they get to know the story behind your business, the story behind you as a leader and an entrepreneur, the more loyal they're going to feel, because more likely you are that they're going to identify with you and they want to support you and help you with your business. So another point that I want to make is, don't be afraid to ask your tier 1 business contacts to help you proselytize and amplify your brand. It's perfectly okay to ask for referrals on LinkedIn. If you want people to share your content on Twitter or Facebook, tell them to do so. Studies show us that if you only add, the word share in front of a tweet, people are 5 times more likely to actually go ahead and do that.
Oh, really?
So it's really sometimes as simple as that. Just ask.
If you don't know. If you don't,
right,
you don't. Right?
Exactly.
You don't say anything.
Exactly.
I love that.
But you have to walk that fine line. You can't be self-promotional. You can't be too salesy. I think that ultimately turns people off. I mean, I don't think that people like feeling that they've been marketed to or they've been messaged to. Right? They want to feel like you have real value and insight and knowledge to share with them that's going to make their lives or their businesses better. So figure out how to create that balance. It's very, very important.
Well, even though we're talking about technology, it really is that same kind of mom and pop store that you're running where you're making and building these relationships over time. But it's just done in a digital way.
Right, exactly.
And people could get to it really fast.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It also can be a little bit more ephemeral. So that's why it's important to keep nurturing those relationships and do, like you said, multiple touch points until people start recognizing who you are.
Get it? And they're like,
yeah.
oh, that's what's behind
Exactly, that. Exactly. That's why consistency in the messaging and uncovering those key differentiators that you want people to associate with your brand and recognize you for is so critical.
It's true.
All right. Another question that I get quite a bit from small businesses and entrepreneurs, and they're rightfully so, is how to deal with negativity. And I think I can totally understand as a business owner, your business is your baby. It's what you invested in. And putting yourself on social media, sometimes you do open up yourself to more criticism. And admittedly, people do like to hide behind the anonymity of the internet and tend to be more outspoken. But, it is a level of acceptable risk that you need to determine that is right for you.
Yeah.
Right. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach here, and maybe that's a good thing because I probably wouldn't have a job if it was that easy.
That's true.
But I've outlined kind of some key 5 points that can help you navigate through a difficult situation. I think the first thing is taking the emotions aside. As difficult as that can be when you feel attacked, try to identify if this is coming actually from a place of constructive criticism, of constructive feedback. Is it just difference of opinions, or are you dealing with people, I call them chronic complainers? They're very easy to identify. Those, we talked about this, like the self-proclaimed snarks online. They just like to attack. If it is the former, if you feel like there are legitimate points, it's worth engaging with that person. Turn that rant into a dialogue. Start bringing this towards, a constructive conversation. And this is where I think we talk a lot about, with social media marketing, about building brand ambassadors. And this is where the value of those relationships, of those brand ambassadors really comes into play. Because you see that people who trust your brand, people who can vouch that you're trustworthy, successful entrepreneur, they will come to your rescue. They will come to vouch for you. They will start chiming in. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you bury the bad stuff, with all the good content. Is obviously nobody wants, to be in a situation when something bad about your company comes up very high on Google searches, right, or in search engines, because that's just kind of horrifying. So if that happens, you want to think about different strategies, how you can bury that content. I actually think engaging with business media is a really good way to do that, because news publications have really great search engine optimizations built into their websites. So if you're mentioned there, this will most likely show up really high on Google searches. So this is going to be one of the first things that people see about you, and they might not even scroll down to see or even notice the negative stuff.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. So think about that, how you can kind of figure out, ways to bury the bad content with the good content. If it is a situation when you feel like you're attacked by a chronic complainer, I would say do not engage. Do not engage, because by engaging, you're only amplifying it. You're only making it more visible online.
And then it can quickly resonate.
Exactly. Exactly. And unfortunately, you can't delete stuff on the internet now.
It's there,
right? So that's just how it is. Like, you just have to understand that, quite frankly, sometimes it's not the end of the world. Just figure out how you can create, positive touch points online, positive things about your brand. And if there is something negative that, it happens to appear on your sites, it will be really buried down in search engine.
Okay. Because I know that's something that I know that people have said to me that they fear in engaging with social media.
Absolutely.
Is that I'm here and I'm exposing myself and I'm really concerned about my reputation and my brand. So what are some of the things that I can do?
Well, as a business owner, you are exposing your brand no matter what. And I think not being on social media, people are still going to talk if they want to say something bad about you. If you're being on social media, at least you can monitor that and understand what they're saying, kind of have an early alert system, and also have some positive and good content to offset that.
I like that tip.
That's
really,
the
really
key.
good.
I mean, any crisis communication professional will tell you that's the key.
Yeah. And I think of, what happened with 60 Minutes and the whole, with Benghazi and like all of a sudden there was all these positive contents and then you get all this negative, so you have to kind of counterbalance that.
You have to.
From a Twitter to a Facebook to a, this application is true business all the way around. Yeah. Okay.
And it's also kind of preventive, you're building credibility for your brand and you're being proactive, which is so important. I'm really glad you stressed that originally, because it's so important to be proactive rather than wait there and be at the mercy of people who may be talking about you, but you don't even know because you're not present.
Right. You're not even there. You don't even know this conversation. I've worked with some restaurants that have been involved, and they're like, oh, our clientele has dropped off. We don't understand why. And I was meeting with them, we went to Yelp, and we saw the answer right there.
Exactly.
And so they were able to go in and quickly, make some changes and be proactive.
But it can cost you. It can cost you real business sales.
And you hear from people that say, well, oh, we've been so busy. We've been, we've got to do this and we got to mind the shop. So maybe that's where you have somebody that's dedicated that can handle.
Or at least set up alert systems. Set up Google alerts for your name.
That's right. So at least you're notified as soon as things
something comes up.
Exactly. Online.
Yep. All right, this is my favorite part of the presentation. Social media programming in general, and I have to tell you, as somebody, I just come from quantitative background, I do believe that you can tie social media to ROI, and I do believe if you measure the right thing, you can understand how your exposure is driving business outcomes. So what I have here is just kind of outline 3 main bucket areas that you want to take a look at. And the first, and probably the most important one, is exposure. And this goes back to your understanding. Are you creating impressions in front of target audiences? Are you reaching the right influencers? And I just want to make a note here. This is looking beyond how many Facebook likes you have or how many Twitter followers.
I always feel like I need to have at least 5,000. I've never gotten it.
It's an arbitrary number, right? Because you can reach one influencer that will drive millions of dollars in sales for you.
That's true.
I think what you would want to look at is month-over-month growth rates, though, because if you're continuously growing, you're continuously expanding, that means that, your brand ambassadors are amplifying your message and your brand is going further. So you do want to track that month-over-month growth rate, because if you're putting all this effort and you're pushing out the right content and you feel like you have the right audience and yet you're not seeing month-over-month growth rates, there's something off, right? There's probably a problem. The other very, very important thing to track is engagement. And this is where we start tying things to more business goals. What are people doing with your message? Are you seeing the phones ring more because since you've been on social media? Are you seeing more website traffic, since you started, tweeting or whatever it may be? Are you seeing more inbound leads coming to you? Are you seeing people make introductions for you in your business because they've seen you on social media? It's so important to track this, because this is where you start translating the social aspect of it into business outcomes. And a lot of companies don't track that, so you do want to look at lead generation, you do want to look at response rates, you do want to look at website traffic. And I think if you generally have, the right exposure and you're building exposure in front of the right audiences and you're seeing them respond positively to your message, they're actively engaged, so you have that engagement metric there, you will move towards more of an influencer voice. So this is where you kind of, influence is a bit soft in terms of measurement because it is a combination of exposure and engagement. It's not that straightforward to measure. But I think it's important to understand, are you seeing more leads coming through your business through social media, and quantify that and see how, if you make more investments in social media, say you spend an extra hour a week, is that giving you, what kind of ROI is that giving you?
I see.
And it's important to understand what that looks like in your scale. And there isn't a prescription about this because every industry and every business is different. It is. It really is. But you do want to actually start thinking about those terms.
Okay.
So now, this is, again, one of my favorite parts of the presentation.
Woo!
I do think
Great.
that it's not, exactly. I mean, it's not easy. We talk about, well, understand impressions and understand your audience and engage in online listening, but how do you really go about and do that? And I've spent some time building together this program, but I feel like if you use those 4 tools, they're all free, by the way, in combination, use them together, combined, they will give you a pretty big piece of the social media puzzle.
Okay.
So let me just go through them very quickly. Twitter Calendar is great. It gives you stats on Twitter users so you can track accounts, you can track conversations and understand how many people they're actually reaching. TweetReach is absolutely hands down my favorite tool. It gives you wonderful statistics.
I used it recently.
You did?
Fabulous.
It is, right?
I love it.
And like I said, sometimes, you don't realize how many impressions you're actually creating. You can create thousands.
4,000 impressions?
You can do that with one tweet. Again, it's all about capturing that audience when they're active.
It was a pretty juicy tweet I sent out.
Ooh. Maybe talk about this offline.
Actually, I retweeted from somebody that was an influencer, and I put my opinion at the front end, and I got some legs off of that, surprisingly.
And that's why these tools are really great, to help you understand what kinds of information and what kinds of content really helps you elicit the response that you're looking for.
Right.
So it allows you to track how many people are following a hashtag, how many people are following your handle, who are the influencers in those conversations, so you can get very, very targeted.
And I should start to engage those people because I know if I engage those influencers, so it's not about me having 5,000 Twitter followers, but it's about having the right people in the mix that help me to get all these impressions.
Yep, exactly. I think Hootsuite, you've probably heard of it. It's very popular. It's a free platform. It allows you to syndicate your content with Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. It also gives you some baseline analytics. It's good. It helps with time management. It has a really interesting dashboard, so you can have a little bit more of an enterprise view of the streams and the topics that you're following. And I really like Mention Map. Mention Map kind of gives you it's a Twitter visualization tool, so it gives you an opportunity to understand who's mentioning you and who you're reaching based on the people who are engaging with you. Like we said, this is all about engagement and amplifying your message and tapping into people's social capital and social influence so you can help scale your brand. All right, and I think this concludes my part of the presentation. If you have any questions that I can address, for the rest of the webinar, feel free to email me or tweet at me or call me. You have my contact information. And thank you so much for listening today. With that, I'm going to hand it off back to Tara.
All right. Now that was great. I always feel like when I talk with Elena, I learned something new. I want to be all things social media, but then I realize I'm just at the tip of the iceberg.
You all are.
We're learning all together in this school.
Well, social media is about crowdsourcing, though, and knowledge management and understanding.
And the relationship.
Exactly, yeah.
That's why I think that's something that's really hitting me home is like I'm building relationships with people around the world that I never would have been able to touch.
Exactly.
And getting content information that could help me with entrepreneurship, what it is that I'm doing.
Exactly.
And what I like to do, everybody out there in webinar land, is I like to talk about who's doing the best things from a national scale and from a local scale. Because I think if you look at the top of the top, then you can start to implement some of those best practices that they're doing. Now, mind you, the people on this list have big pockets. They have deep pockets. But the one thing that I noticed that they all do is those 5 ingredients, the 6 ingredients that I talked about earlier, and they repeat. Now, of course, they hire some wonderful marketing firms to help them to do this. I understand that. I have to say that in the beginning. But if you take some of the elements that they've done and put them into your own social media toolkit, I think that would be great. Mashable, which I have to say Mashable.com is a awesome resource for anybody that's doing social media. They have great content. I've retweeted some of their things and they are definitely an influencer.
They have a lot of practical advice as well. That's what I like about their
love
site.
Mashable.com.
They give you a good roadmap so you can actually take and implement right away exactly
what they're doing. And so each year what Mashable does is they honor the best of the best. And the 5 campaigns that you see here, with the exception of the Nike ad, went on and won each of these different categories. So for overall best social media campaign for last year, it was given to the Human Rights Campaign as they were working with people for equal marriage rights. And they actually asked people, their ask was to have people change their photos so that it all showed their universal colors. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
The hits that they received, the retweets that they received, the action that they were able to get people to make a change, and some say it did influence the Supreme Court. So these are things that people are doing, but they just didn't do it reactionary.
Right.
They were very proactive about their message, how they used the multiple platforms and how they went through in order to create people to change. Now, what's cool about the Nike ad on greatness, Nike was looking to enter. Now, of course, Nike started off as a small business. They received an SBA loan many moons ago. They were small, and now look at them. But they received the runner-up award for Best Social Media Campaign for the Mashies because they actually were looking at the market in China and how to get people to buy running shoes. And culturally, you know, looking at the London Olympics, you know, people really weren't about going and buying Nike tennis shoes. You know, it's actually changing a behavior, which I always tell people in marketing it's so hard to change behaviors. But if you have the big bucks that Nike did and they created this social campaign where they made it cool for people to wear tennis shoes and you didn't have to be an Olympic athlete in order to do so. And the amount of impressions, the amount of people that they got to follow this campaign and to change their behavior and to increase their brand awareness was awesome. For the next 3, I say definitely Google those, take a look. Emoji brand names, they really fostered awareness and using 140 characters on Twitter. So the funny thing about Twitter is when I'm in it and I'm using it, I start thinking in 140 characters or less.
So true.
So be very careful with that too. I think I was doing something the other day and I was like, how can I express this in short sentences, you know? But they did a great job. Snappy is a small business. They were a rising star of their use of digital media in order to get a ton of impressions. And of course, who could forget, I mean, if you have a product like Oreo, I mean, I get that, but they were very creative. They had their 2 cups of coffee and used Instagram in order to get their message out. So I've included the link so you can see that as some of the best practices nationally. Now looking locally. Okay, now this list was made by me. It's my opinion, but these are people that I follow. And why I like them is because they're consistent. I know when to expect their tweets. I know when they're going to change Facebook postings. I know when they're going to do what they're going to do. And it's consistent over time. It's scratching an itch that I have, like whether I want to buy their product. District Taco started off very small. They use Twitter and Facebook. You know, they're in the food industry. Consistent over time. They respond to all their customers. And they went from being 1 truck in Crystal City primarily to 4 storefront locations, multiple trucks, and they're still using social media to get their message across. So maybe, remember back in the day, they only had a few followers, but at the end of the day, they've amassed this great following. Bayou Bakery, it's the same thing, consistent over time. I went to their Facebook page. Their stuff is updated frequently, and it looks awesome.
You can have the actual experience of going into, it's like a little store, right? It's like a coffee shop that is wonderful, and that comes through their Facebook page.
You see it with the pictures.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like when I look at the pictures, I'm just breathing in New Orleans. Like I'm breathing in Bayou, and I'm breathing in.
They have wonderful ideas.
Get you to change.
Yeah,
you know, you look, and they ask their customers to make comments on Yelp. They ask for an action, and it actually takes place. Arl Now. I have to tell y'all, Scott is amazing. I'm on Arl Now every day because if you live, breathe, work in Arlington, he gets the information. He's tweeting. He's changing his content on Arl Now is a blog. He's changing that information frequently. He allows people to make comments. He will not remove comments but he will respond to the ones that are extreme. But very, very into the moment, very quality information. I've never seen him do a retraction as far as I'm aware, but the information has changed daily. Intelligent Ethos, I met Dana about a year or so ago, and her content, her information, she's working with small businesses and consulting. Her information is updated. She tweets all the time. Her information is relevant. I consider her an influencer. I can go to her Twitter account and find information that's pertinent to entrepreneurs. Also, we met Christina Buare a few months ago with Reston Limo. You think limousine? She is on there all the time. She's engaged. These are some of the folks that I see, and there are tons more that I can show you. Yeah. But if you Google them and take a look at what they do with social media, it's amazing. Yeah. It's that overall consistency. It's great customer service. I never find them snarky. I think in this age, I have to say, in 2013, I felt like it was the year of the snark, where people think they have to come up with these biting, Right. But what we really like are the warm, fuzzy people that will respond consistently over time, that we know we can talk to, and that will take the time to know our names. That's the difference. It's that personalized voice. And the quality of the followers and likes, I always feel compelled that I want a ton of followers and that I want a ton of likes. But then I realize when I go back to somebody and I say, we had this tweet up on, starting up. Did you see it? People say, people I wasn't even aware of, see it, know it, feel it, and it's been incredible. So really take a look at some of the folks that are here locally within your industry sector. And, you'll be able to pick up some good tips from them. Use what works, use what doesn't work, but really understand how your customer receives that information. Because I never would have thought that Reston Limo would be as active as they are on social media. And not only are they active, but she's extremely successful with it. Okay, now. Some of the takeaways, and then we definitely want to get into some of your Q&As because we may have missed or not hit some of the questions that you may have on the phone line, so we really want to make sure we get you in as well. But some things that I want you to remember. Use social media daily. Now that could be 5 or 10 minutes a day. That could be 15, 20 minutes. It depends on your end user, your audience. But please, whatever you do, use it daily, weekly. Use your voice or the voice of your business. Personalize it. Make it warm and engaging. Be consistent. I can't express that enough. Ensure that most customers will go back to your website for more. That's the bottom line. It's not only about doing social media, but it's about engaging and making sure that you're driving people so that they will do a change. Quality versus quantity. It's not about the numbers. We always don't do anything just to go viral, even though there's social pressure to go viral. If you go viral with your customers, now that's a good thing. Yeah. And you may have 20 customers that you go viral with all the time, and that's what you want. Do it and do it well. Have a strategy in place. Be proactive versus reactive, and be responsive to your customers. Don't let that information just lie there. If somebody tweets you, make sure that you give it 24 to 48 hours to respond, just like how you would do if they called you on the phone or if they sent you an email. So these are our takeaways from today for our social media, and we're hoping that we have some folks on the line that can ask us some really biting questions.
Okay, well, Tara, I've received a few questions over your presentation. The first one was that they have a lot going on and they want to keep connected, but finding the time is a challenge. Do you have any recommendations for that?
I actually do. I think it's important to turn social media into a habitual activity. So carve out a time in your day. Just block some time on your calendar.
Your calendar. Write it down.
Write it down. It's okay if that's, Friday afternoon and you put together the content schedule for next week, for example. Or
Hootsuite.
Exactly. Because, I was going to say, these management tools, they allow you to schedule content well in advance. So you don't actually need to be on Twitter to tweet 3 times a day. You can schedule that content. But I do think that it's important to at least, be on Twitter once a day, because the value of social media for your business is really going to come through social listening. Listen to your customers. Understand what are the topics and the trends and the issues that impact them, that are important to them. They're capturing their attention, and, insert yourself into those conversations. But this is kind of like focus groups amplified, and you don't even have to pay for market research.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. There's so few small businesses that can afford to do market research. I mean, use social media as your kind of big picture focus group. Absolutely. So that will require you to be online.
Now, do you think, this is something that we've talked about, which is using the Facebook to boost posts and paying for certain content. Is it worth it?
I think, actually, that's a very good question. I think it is at some point. So what you want to focus on is building the foundation of your presence organically. Push out, engaging content. Push out content that people are going to want to receive. And at some point, once you reach critical mass, and you want to amplify your message and you want to amplify your program, then it's worth promoting. But only promote if you have a specific call to action, promote a white paper or promote your website because you're doing something big that you want people to be aware of and drive customers to your stores. So use it sparingly, but I think it's worth it because they're very cost effective. Twitter advertising is something like $1 a follower, and it's kind of following the pay-per-click model. So it is around that range, so it does make sense. But you have to understand, for you to keep those people engaged with your account, you need to have good content.
That's right. That's right. The quality.
Yeah.
We go back to the quality.
Yeah. So it's worth throwing it in the mix for those big picture initiatives that really matter to your business.
Okay. Thank you, Elena.
Very good question.
Yeah. Any other questions?
There are quite a few. Just to remind everyone, if you want to send a question in, do so now, but we're getting a bunch. To answer a couple people, we will be making the presentation available after it's done. It's been recorded, so we'll post that and we'll email it out along with a survey. And let's see, Melissa Jones asks, she heard about the measurement tools that you discussed, and she was wondering how many you would recommend utilizing at one time.
I think you will definitely, so they give you different pieces of the puzzle, right? I mean, they give you different types of measurements. Some of them are focused on overall analytics. Some of them give you an opportunity to more in-depth explore the impressions that you're creating. So I would say make it a point to go and visit all of them once a week. I promise it does not take that long. It's really easy. You just plug in your Twitter handle, or you plug in your Facebook.
Very easy.
And it generates, the results automatically. It really probably wouldn't take you more than 5 minutes a week to go through all of these 4 programs and take a look at how what you've accomplished that week.
That gives you your business intelligence to say what's working, what's not working,
how to refine your program, understand if you're missing an influencer, if somebody is sending out on a topic you want to engage with them. The other thing I want to say, it's important to understand when to activate those relationships and take the online conversations offline, because that's ultimately how you drive sales, right?
That's right.
Obviously don't be too salesy and pitchy. Approach people that you feel like you've built good enough rapport, so you can, ask them for coffee, ask them for a business meeting, but it's up to you to translate that, their online conversation to an offline business meeting. So keep that in mind.
That's a good point. Very good point. Additional questions?
We're getting one, so I'll ask one last question, and then if people, want to contact us afterwards, maybe tweet at Tara or Elena, that'd be a great way to reach out as well. But a final question is from Meredith, and she said that she's new to social media, and she was wondering if there's any way to, get better acquainted with things like Twitter, Facebook, a Twitter 101 or Facebook 101.
There are a lot of resources and tools available online for free. I am happy to give you some more guidance if you want to reach out to me. I have a few things in mind. The challenge when you're in a situation like that is hard to understand which ones are credible and which ones are not. So I'm more than happy to give you more personal direction in that sense.
And we can also, in hearing this, we can also offer more basic classes as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we do a webinar where we go over
how to get started. Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so stay tuned for that. That will be coming. Ask and you shall receive, Meredith.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much to our presenters, and thank you for everyone who tuned in to watch this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up with us, and we look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. We had fun.
Great. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.